Hey, how is it going? So, really quick question. I just want to make sure I'm not crazy, but I'm not being, really tightly cropped on YouTube, am I? I'm actually just checking. Nope, I'm fine. It's really strange. For some reason, my dashboard view of the video just shows the upper, let's see, which corner is it? I guess the upper left corner of my video. I have no idea why. Maybe if I refresh this, will that work? That would be... No! This is so weird. But when I check on YouTube, it looks right. I have no idea what's going on. No, Corbin could not make it today. I have a feeling it's because he knows that I am going to go absolutely ape crap on vlogs. I got some haterade going today. We are gonna not talk pleasantly about some crap that has gone on in the well, people like to call it news, but yeah, not gonna be polite. I got some rant to do. Let's see. So yeah, have you on? Gearbox got purchased. We're gonna talk about that. Yeah, believe it or not, only a portion of my rant has to do with politics, but I am actually going to hit politics too. I should have made notes for this. Like, this could become a prolific haterade episode, and I should have prepared more for it. But yeah, I'm unhappy. Very, very unhappy. But let's see. Okay, the one thing I forgot to do, actually, I'm sure it's not the only thing I forgot to do, but I need to set up my window capture. Oh, and I need to, yeah, I should fix that, but I'll do it in a minute. Okay. Where is our browser? There's a browser. And it needs to point to that window. Hey, that looks correct. Let's also change this zoom level. Which I should just fix this entirely someday. And if I fix it entirely, what I really mean is just change the layout so so it automatically zooms the video and not trust the webcam to do it right. Because the webcam's never going to do it right. Okay, and we're going to... Let's see. Oops. We need to fix the media player. So it's got the correct song. There we go. And to go with the correct song, we're also going to change over to the other playlist. Don't do that to me. Okay. We're just gonna add the songs individually, I guess. That's okay. Nothing to see here. And as soon as we switch songs, I will just remove this one from the playlist and we will have transitioned. It's almost like a professional thing, but not even remotely. So how is everybody doing this fine Wednesday? It's the middle of the week. Cody close up. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's middle of the week. It is the Wednesday. Yeah, we have some wacky news. Because evidently Stadia is dead. Like completely in the grave, gone. Google already canceled it. If you go there today and try to play Stadia, not even there. The brand name doesn't even exist anymore. They actually gave it up. And I believe this, according to news sites, happened. I think it was 3 years ago. They actually canceled Stadia 3 years ago. So that's unfortunate, but founders will find that as a surprise, because after all, they were using a dead product when it launched. So yeah, in case anyone hasn't heard, Google, here's the real truth of the story. Google did in fact, damn it, I knew when I said that it was gonna trigger somewhere. I think I triggered 2 phones. Yep. Sorry about that if I did that to anybody else's gadgets. Cancel culture. As a matter of fact, that is exactly what happened. Google decided to cancel culture out Stadia. That's precisely what happened. So, yeah. According to Google, oops, I'm gonna really quickly also mute Slack. You guys don't hear it anymore, but it does bother me. So that's now muted as well. Yay. Okay. So, here's the real story. We'll start with the truth, because I'm going to get angry about the part that's not the truth in a moment. The true story is Google has announced that they are shutting down. They've made the decision to shut down their, let's see, it's SG&E, I believe it is, Stadia Games and Entertainment division. This is the at least 2 studios that were set up for the purpose of making Stadia exclusive games. And we'll definitely dig into this more in a moment. I've got a lot to say on just that part alone. But the news also came with the announcement that Google is looking for ways to possibly license Stadia, to make different use of it, to put it into hey Cecil Donna, how's it going? They're basically planning on, for lack of a better way to put it, turning Stadia into more of a software as a service sort of situation, or actually kind of service as a service situation. And basically license it out to other game companies, and I don't think they mention non-gaming companies, but I think the smart takeaway is that they're going to license it out to anybody that wants to use this type of interface. Yeah, they're basically white labeling. And there's a lot to take away from that story as well. And I think these are, if we're being realistic, these are 2 separate stories. The element that they're shutting down a pair of studios, that's honestly kind of a big deal. And the fact that they are looking at white labeling Stadia in any capacity is a big deal. And both of these are very different things. Though, if you listen to news blogs, they are not. And you may notice the window I'm currently showing. Before we move forward, I'd like to point out, full disclaimer, Corbin did not write that title. I want to make that abundantly clear. Corbin did not write that title. Now, I say this because I'm going to hate the hell on this title in a moment. So, yeah. This isn't the worst of them. But the best way to put it is, it is grossly misleading to what is actually happening in the story. It is, I think, objectively one of the less obscene titles, but it is still not really in the good place. Unless we're talking about the Good Place, the show. Wait, are we still in... No, these are definitely the hip-hop tracks. This just feels like an EDM track. Anyway. So, here's the problem. There were sites that very legitimately actually had headlines that said Google has killed Stadia. Like, straight up, they didn't even try to get subtle with it. They just said Google has killed Stadia. Sadly, you know what? I don't know that I think I'd have to go back and look to find where I saw at least one of those linked. Nevertheless, this is the type of bullshit news that blogs are trying to get away with now. They have given up on writing the truth. They're now they're editorializing for the purpose of fan fiction. They want to get shocking headlines. So declaring Stadia dead ahead of its death has become the new hot thing to do. And when I say the new hot thing to do, I mean, realistically, it's the thing that they've been doing it for as long as Stadia has been a thing anyone was talking about at all. Let's see. I'm scrolling back through looking for one of those really offensive headlines. I think I'm pretty close to it in this history, but not there yet. Anyway, this is just straight up pissing me off because it's not the first time I've watched it happen, and I was angry at it the last time. But the last time I also wasn't podcasting actively, so, you know, I didn't really have a good opportunity to rant and rave about this anywhere else. But the last time I saw basically a media run campaign to kill something, it was Google Plus. Google Plus was absolutely horribly mistreated by bloggers. They basically were declaring they were basically declaring that Google Plus was a ghost town, that Google Plus had failed before it even started. And the list of absolute idiocy just kept going on. It went on for 4 years. Google Plus was around for at least 4 years. I think it was longer than that. No, it was definitely longer than that. I'd have to look. But for as long as Google Plus was around, people who tried it in literally the first week were determined to declare it dead. And despite the fact that its user base was growing, despite the fact that it was actually pretty successful for a good period of time, they kept telling everyone, oh my god, it's already dead. These people, and when I say these people, I mean, you can go back and look. Most of them weren't smart enough to remove examples of themselves doing this. These people went out of their way to make a case for why Google Plus was dead so quickly that they had no idea what they were even saying. Most of them weren't using it at all. They never looked. They never would have known. They just automatically declared, it's over, it's dead. Damn it. I am looking for... I know I saw... Maybe it was in a different chat room. But I know I saw at least one post that actually just... The title literally was, Google Plus is dead. Or sorry, not Google Plus is dead, but Stadia is dead. I know I saw that title in here. But it may not have been this chat room. Which means that I'd be looking forever to find it. Nevertheless. Okay. If I can't find it in here, I'm going to stop looking. YouTubers too. Yeah, okay. Google Plus 2011 to 2019. Yeah, I don't know why I had 4 years in my head. But with Google Plus, I have been convinced for a long time that the reality of this behavior is that bloggers, generally speaking, tech bloggers, they kind of have to present themselves as knowing the industry so well that they can consider themselves pundits rather than just reporters. And it's a cute notion, but it's stupid as hell. The problem with that is, in order to sell that story, they have to convey that they themselves know so much, and to prove that, they have to make predictions. Well, when they make predictions, sometimes they're just talking out of their asses. Well, when they're talking out of their asses, a lot of times they're picking something like, and we'll use Google Plus as an example, but we could use other great examples like Android Wear, Stadia, let's see, Pebble, though to be fair, I still maintain Pebble was doomed from the start. And the list could go on and on and on. I mean, we've seen various predictions that are just comically stupid once you look into them. But with the case of Google Plus, and I would say the same happened with Android Wear, and we've seen it happen since before Stadia even launched. In order to sell this story, they basically say, this thing is dead, it's going to be a failure, it's doomed. And then when the thing comes out, if it's successful, those same people will just keep saying, no, it's obviously failing. And they will keep saying it's failing until people believe it. Eventually, a lot of people will believe it. People who don't want something to succeed for their own reasons. In the case of Stadia, it's not hard to look at PC Master Race and console fans who all want to see Stadia fail for reasons that don't make a lot of sense. They're all just determined to see game streaming fail. In the case of Google Plus, I don't think there really was any real reason outside of some people were big fans of Facebook, or some people just didn't want Google to have a social network. And you know, I can imagine there being actually a lot of different reasons for this one, but in the end, there has been this trend, and it's been going on for decades now. If anything in tech, there's going to be something that people decide to pile onto. And when they do, they're going to tell everyone why it sucks, why it's terrible, and why it needs to fail. And the thing that we are seeing in the last decade or so is, instead of saying why it needs to fail, they just say it already has failed. I mean, I could point to articles on Android Police. They are editorials that just straight up say something has failed, when in fact in many cases you can actually point to sales figures that show the exact opposite is true. But the thing is, if you say it failed enough times, eventually people will believe it, and eventually that has the impact of making the thing fail, if enough people hop on board and really believe in it. I will argue to this day that that's what happened to Google Plus. I think to some extent that happened to Android Wear, and judging by the news about Stadia, it's pretty obvious it's happening there too. Now, I'm not saying Stadia was going to be a massive success. I'm not saying Stadia was not going to fail. Those things could very well have still happened. I'm not going to defend or argue any day that Stadia was run well. It wasn't. Stadia was run very poorly. Comically so, I would even say. But so is 90% of everything else at Google. And somehow a lot of it still succeeds. I mean, granted, it once you look at... Okay, well, actually, I'll just pick the most obvious example. Chrome OS. Chrome OS is a disaster zone. You can like it, and I'm not complaining if you like it. I'm not criticizing anyone for liking it, but in the sense of how the project is being run, it is very, very poorly run. You can tell by, honestly, you can just look at some of the Garrett entries. It's very clear they don't often know what they're doing. I mean, I'm not saying the developers are bad or ignorant. I'm saying that they don't have a good direction. They often don't have good plans for the OS. Meanwhile, Chrome OS is still wildly successful. It is still selling in increasingly higher numbers. Chrome OS market share is growing, despite the fact that it is a poorly run project. So, and Google obviously runs a good search engine. Google obviously runs a pretty damn good advertising business. We can point to examples like YouTube and various, well, honestly, YouTube's run like garbage too, but it's still successful as hell, and getting more so. It's not like YouTube's success has decreased in the last, we'll say 2 years, because, I mean, I would have said year, but let's be honest, it's unfair. It's unfair with COVID to measure anything by the last year. So Stadia definitely run poorly. Not defending that, but hands down, it still is the best technology for game streaming that we've seen. It is the most successful that we've seen in terms of actually delivering the product that it promised. Obviously, that's still a pretty low bar, given that it hasn't managed to deliver 4K or 60 frames per second for every game. It just, hands down, without question, it's still the closest to delivering a high-end experience out of any of the services. Okay, but really quick before I go on, let's hit some of these comments. C. Saldana said, I don't know why the gaming community wants to see Stadia fail, but loves Xbox game streaming. That is a question that I can only attach to fanboyism. I mean, Stadia very clearly has a ton of haters, and I associate that so much with the fact that Stadia it's a Google product, whereas Microsoft xCloud, or is it Xbox xCloud? Whatever. I am thinking of the right service, right? It is called xCloud. That is very obviously a case of Microsoft fanboys are Microsoft fanboys, or rather Xbox fanboys are Xbox fanboys. They are going to fanboy over a thing. It doesn't have to be better than the opponent. It just has to be delivered by the company that they like. It exists everywhere. Like, at this point, I'm not even inclined to hate on them. They've just picked their circle to associate with, and they're going to hate the competition. The console wars never ended. Cecil Don also brought up Pixel phones, and yeah, Pixel phones did get some undue hate from critics, but I think some of it is also deserved. Very notably, like anyone who wants to complain about the fact that Pixel phones have not had a new camera sensor in 3 or 4 years, that's pretty bad. They are overpriced for the specs. They are weak comparatively. They're a weak value, or damn it, what's the term I'm looking for? Value proposition. Yeah, that's, I think, what I'm going for. They're a weak value proposition given most circumstances, at least for regular buyers. Not to say that they don't have other advantages for certain buyers, but different topic. Anyway, let's see. Austin, I think it would be cool. Oh, by the way, also, hello, Austin. I think it would be cool for Stadia to team up with Sony and offer streaming options for the latest games on older hardware. That, I agree, would be really cool. And in a way, that's actually something I'm going to touch on. I've got a bit of a theory regarding what Stadia could become. But yeah, I do agree. I think it would be... seeing as Sony is very clearly they were one of the first to enter the market of game streaming, but they were also one of the last, in a sense. Like, they started doing it before anybody else, but at this point, their technology is really old, outdated, and not really competitive. So either they are working hard to do their own thing, and they're really, really slow to roll it out, or they just haven't started working on it at all. Like, they're just leaving the old thing intact because what else are they going to do? And Sony being Sony, I could see both being possibilities. My theory, though, just to point this out, it is different than like a straight up Sony partnering with Google to deliver this over Stadia. I have a different idea of how I see that playing out. Nevertheless, as Curvy Mermaid said next, and I do tend to agree with that, Sony is proprietary and they don't want to do that. They would rather you get a PS5, or for that matter, they would want a service that they're running in-house. Sony is weird about that. Some defense of Chrome OS, sort of. And again, I'm not hating on anyone that uses it. I'm just pointing out the team is disorganized and may not necessarily always be working towards a smart goal. Let's see. Pixelbook was your favorite Google hardware of all time. The Pixel 2 XL for Curvy. True, but I don't see next-gen gaming happening on new hardware. They'll want to do streaming, and that's where Stadia could be successful. Okay, well, I'll kind of come back to that. See, Saldana Stadia is still not on all devices. We'll definitely be touching on that in a moment. And their branding for it is weird, but the official name is Xbox Game Pass Cloud Game. Oh, wow. Really? That's terrible. Your official name for something should never should never be so long that you kind of want to put a period at the end of it. If it looks like a sentence, you failed. Branding failed. Okay, I need to move these out of view. They are bugging me. Okay, sip of water, then rant will continue. And a cough. All right. So, again, I'm going to break this up into two things because I think it's two different pieces of news. The first is the game studio being shut down. Now, shutting down the game studio introduces, I think, evidence of something that we've all known for a long time. AAA games are expensive. That game studio was presumably supposed to build Stadia exclusives. And in doing so, they were going to build games for a platform that has, I mean, certainly some users, but how many users, we don't know. There's no way to tell how many people are actively using Stadia, how many may have just hopped on to try it out, how many of them actually bought in and are continuing to buy in. certainly how many of them are like me, where they got just like a few games and continue to not subscribe. There's a lot we really don't know about Stadia's usage. But what we do know is opening a game studio whose sole intent is to serve games to a single platform that is not popular with PC master race, B, not popular with console players, C, not accessible to most of the world, and D, not accessible to a fair number of people in the US and any other country that is covered, because they just happen to be on crappy internet service, or even on good internet service, but just happens to be one that doesn't have a good close short trip to Stadia servers. So this is a challenging notion to make expensive games targeted at a platform that is probably going to have compared to consoles, it is going to have a very limited audience. And I think there's a great example of how this actually played out in very, very recent history. Let's talk about CD Projekt Red, because it actually demonstrates this point flawlessly. I have a theory, and maybe I'm wrong on this theory, so I'm about to go off on not exactly math, but sort of math logic, that is based on a theory, but stick with me. I think most people would agree with this logic. CD Projekt Red has been criticized for many, many things with the release of Cyberpunk 2077, but I think the biggest criticism that they've faced is the fact that they released the game at all on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I always have to stop myself from saying Xbox 360. I don't know why. Xbox One did not happen in my brain. Anyway, they released it to a total of 6 platforms. 7 if you want to split up 2 of them, but they released it to Stadia, PC, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X. I'm kind of merging those 2 together logically. I don't think I should. They probably kind of belong in one, or in 2 separate camps, but it doesn't matter. Now, here's the thing. By releasing to these 6 different platforms, I think everyone can say with some confidence, releasing to PC did good sales, better than I think we really expected. So you still on it, they basically have the same internals, close enough at least. Okay, I'll grant that, though. As I recall, the Series S is weaker, is it not? Like, somewhat substantially weaker. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought it was. Nevertheless, much less powerful GPU, less RAM, and less storage. Okay, that's what I thought. And the lower power GPU is, to me, the biggest issue. Certainly RAM matters too, and storage is whatever. That's more of a management problem for users than a performance issue. But it's the GPU and RAM that matter, kind of, for at least this discussion. Let's see. It can also do 60 FPS. Okay. 120. Yeah, but I know that that's on pretty low end games. Like, it's not like you're doing that with like the more graphically intensive AAA games. I'm sure you're not hitting the highest refresh rates. Anyway, Not really the point of this, but so they released Cyberpunk. Again, Stadia did pretty well. Obviously, Cyberpunk actually did really well on Stadia. We know this much. It did pretty good in PC. No surprise. The only problem is, very obviously, the hardware specs required to run Cyberpunk 2077 on a PC and not turn the settings down to the absolute bare minimum are still pretty high. I don't know exactly what the ratios are, but I'm gonna guess only like maybe 1% of PCs that are in active use around the world can actually play it. And when I say 1% of active PCs, keep in mind I'm counting in like office PCs that have onboard graphics, where it's 1% is still a large number, but it's a small percentage of a market. Let's see, you can play it pretty well on a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series S or X. Again, less well on an S, but we don't need to nitpick that. So these are 4 platforms where the game plays pretty well, or can play pretty well. But they also release it to the PlayStation 4 and, of course, the Xbox One. Now, the problem with this is, and I commented on this on the first day back when the news first hit, why on earth would they release a game that played so poorly on those 2 platforms? What on earth made sense about releasing to 2 platforms that any beta tester could have told you immediately? See, Saldana, that's exactly where I'm headed with this, actually. The problem is, you couldn't... any beta tester could have sat down, played the game for 5 minutes, and told you, "Wow, this really sucks. I don't want to play this game on those consoles because it's ugly with the settings turned all the way down, and it plays like crap still." So, common sense alone tells you, I mean, it's plainly obvious that would be a bad decision. But they still release it to those 2 platforms. Well, why would they do that? Well, keep in mind their expected sales figures. They freely admitted that they got way higher sales than they thought they would. No questions asked. Cyberpunk outsold their expectations by leaps and bounds, which, congrats to them. They ran a hype circus that was unbeatable. Now, here's the thing. They expected to sell pretty well on PC, because that was obviously the highest end experience you could get. They didn't know whether or not they were going to sell on Stadia basically at all. They had good reason to expect Stadia would do at least some numbers, but realistically, they did not anticipate Stadia would do well. And then, any idiot could tell you, you couldn't buy a PlayStation 5, you couldn't buy an Xbox Series X. They were not in stores. You couldn't order them. If you tried to order them, you'd have to have a bot doing it for you, because there was zero chance you could get in there before stock sold out of any place that had it for sale. Absolutely no way you could get those platforms. So, what do you do if you're a company that's about to release a game that has wildly, horribly designed graphic subsystem that is so demanding, bewilderingly, stupidly demanding, to the point that it's incompetence to have released it in the state that it was? But, you know, far be it for me to over criticize here. If you know your odds of making good sales on Stadia were, they assumed, low, you're only gonna, and no one can possibly even expect to get the two consoles that anybody wants to get, and the only place left to sell your game that you've been developing for 8 years and has a budget in excess of any other AAA game in history. I believe. I'm pretty sure that's right. If you've got a game that is that expensive and it can only be played decently on 4 platforms, 2 of which nobody can get, and 1 of which they didn't expect good sales on. Like, I'm dancing around this topic pretty clearly. They didn't expect to make back their money. And one way they could go is keep developing for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Just keep working on them, keep fine-tuning, keep trying to fix performance issues and get them running even smoother. They could absolutely have done that. And it would have meant releasing the game 3 to 6 months later on those platforms. How would sales have been? They'd be okay, but they wouldn't be good. How about, and by that time, more people could have gotten a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X. People would be able to get those, and by that time, would they be buying the game? Some would, but the news is old now. Are people going to be rushing to get Cyberpunk once it's been out for 3 to 6 months? A few would, but it's not going to be the same. It's not going to move in those same numbers. It's not going to have day one hype. The other way to go is just launch it on day one to these 2 consoles that have massive market share. And again, you're probably wondering why I'm talking about all this. It leads back to Stadia in just a second. So they could release a game to 2 consoles that it was going to perform like garbage on, but it would get them huge sales. Guaranteed lots of money. And it's because no matter what, and I don't have inside knowledge on this. We've seen no proof that this is the case, but it's common sense. I bet if we had a way to see this, CD Projekt Red's sales, I would bet their PlayStation 4 and Xbox One sales dwarf every other platform. Maybe Stadia might have actually pulled out some surprising numbers. Maybe PC came to represent better than we expected. See, Saldana, CDPR did actually recoup development costs within 1 week of release. Exactly. And what I'm predicting is that they did it entirely because they did launch to PS4 and Xbox One. God, I just keep wanting to say Xbox 360. Cecil Donna, actually, the news that came out said CDPR recouped their costs within 1 week despite the returns. It wasn't even before returns, it was despite those returns. Now, granted, I'm sure there were more returns that came later that may have brought that number down a little bit, but I bet it didn't matter enough. A lot of people kept playing it on PS4 and Xbox One despite the fact that it played like garbage. Or looked like garbage and played like garbage. Yeah, and you've pasted a link into the RambleCast chat room. So, like I said, this all tracks back to the shutdown of Stadia's game studio. And there is actually a reason and a logic behind this. And it's because making AAA games is really expensive. It's hard to do. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this. It costs money to hire voiceover people. It costs money to develop the game engines and write scripts. It costs money to have developers working there, to have artists doing obviously concept art, building models, just everything in there, writing the scripts for the games, not just the scripts in terms of dialogue scripts, but the actual development scripts. All of these things cost a lot of money. AAA studios are not cheap to run. And at the end of the day, if you're going to try to build a game studio that targets only a single platform, it's going to lose a fucking mint. And that's the problem. SG&E was basically guaranteed to lose money on AAA games, which is at least presumably why it was Jade Raymond. Was that her name? Yeah, Jade Raymond. Jade Raymond, of course, came from Ubisoft and Electronic Arts, but more recently Ubisoft. And by any reasonable standard, everyone knew and expected her to be part of a push for AAA games. I believe they even said that in the earlier announcements. I could be wrong. Ubisoft as opposed to Ubisoft. I just like Ubisoft more. But I'll try to say Ubisoft. Cecil Don, it's like making a movie. And exactly, it is a lot like making a movie. I'm saying the French pronunciation. Wasn't the company originally a French company? Maybe I'm misremembering. Remembering the history on a game company hardly matters to me. Okay, so I'm saying it correctly, is what you're saying. All right. So anyway, so my point here is, if SG&E stayed in operation and made a AAA game, I think it would have lost huge money. And what would they have gotten from that? Next to nothing. Like, it would have driven a few more sales on Stadia. It would have probably gotten more people interested in Stadia, but would it have turned around enough to like actually make a profit or even break even on a AAA game? Not a chance. Zero realistic chance. And it would have been neat to see a feature, like some of the features of Stadia that are Stadia unique features. It would have been great to see some of those realized. Yeah, what movie studio? Oh, YouTube Originals. Yikes. Well, not as much as a Marvel movie, but certainly more than something produced by Shudder. If you guys don't know what Shudder is, look it up. Lot of budget horror movies. Though every once in a while they do actually come out with some pretty good names. So anyway, man, doing the movie post this last year has really introduced me to a lot of very interesting stuff. And Corbin, that's where I'm headed with this argument. I think their smart move would have been, what I would have recommended certainly, is for SG&E to be a multi-platform studio, to target at least the consoles, if not also PC, and while building a game that is intended for all platforms, also take the time to build in some Stadia exclusive features. So the Stadia stuff becomes features, not necessarily mandatory parts of the game. And it would have been a fantastic idea if they went to, and this is where things will start getting a little bit of a crossover story here with the next part of this, but I don't see any reason they could not have used Stadia to deliver features to consoles. So a lot of this Stadia unique stuff, they could have actually run it on Stadia in like smaller processes to still accomplish lots of really neat things, but deliver it to your Xbox, deliver it to your PlayStation. Now, in a moment, I'm going to also talk about how logically there's nothing stopping anybody from selling a game for an Xbox or PlayStation that is itself basically just a wrapper around Stadia. And we'll get there. But logically, making SG&E a multi-platform studio would have absolutely changed the game and made it viable as a profitable game studio, not just a random throwaway thing that lost money for Stadia and Google in the long run. They could have made it profitable, and it's insane to me that they didn't try for that. All right, let's see comments. Austin, I'm not sure what Google was thinking. They had to know it would be lots of money to run a game studio. They tried to run a movie studio and that failed. Let's see. Okay, yeah, actually, oh, you were talking about Spotlight Stories. That was a movie studio, but that was a weird thing. If anything, Google has actually had a lot of history trying to launch movie studios and failing. You can go back to I believe it was their first example. I can't remember the name of the studio, but they were trying to start up a production company that was responsible for the infamous Banana Apocalypse video that's now super old. I've referenced this a few times. They of course had Spotlight Stories, which honestly I'd completely forgotten about. They also had YouTube Originals. They've had a few others, and it never goes super well. It really has not gone well. But nevertheless, let's see. Corbin, only Google would buy a thing that takes multiple years to produce anything and then close it after a year. Yeah, painfully true. But honestly, I think there is a reason for this. And I know that this is going to sound stupid, but I have a feeling that they launched Stadia thinking Stadia would draw enough new customers that they'd be able to release AAA games as exclusives to the platform and make it profitable. Then when that failed, I mean, after a year, you can kind of tell that's not going to work out. At that stage, I think it kind of makes sense. The problem I see with this is they weren't smart about what to do with the company. They're talking about shuttering the company, which makes no sense to me. If I were Google, and maybe they did try this, but if I were Google, I would have tried to sell SG&E. Just straight up find a buyer for it. I mean, there are lots of companies that are constantly looking to open up new locations and get more developers. So maybe Google just wanted to keep the developers. That's totally a possibility. But whatever the case, I think it was a mistake to just shutter the whole thing outright. Awesome. Wonder if they knew Gearbox was up for sale before they made this decision. That introduces maybe some interesting possibilities. The thing is, I don't think they would have bought Gearbox in order to build this company. It would have been interesting. It certainly would have been interesting, but I don't think that Gearbox makes. Well, it would. Trying to think of how to say this. I think the problem with Gearbox is they typically make games that are still pretty accessible across a lot of platforms, and they're good at that. Reasonably good at that. Actually, they're kind of terrible at it with Borderlands 3, but let's not get too deep into the nitty-gritty. Borderlands 3 is horribly optimized, actually famously bad. But yeah, my reservation about them buying that is it's a company that it needs to have high sales to make successes. Gearbox is very much designed around you got to have big, huge releases that draw big numbers. And so they're willing to throw more money into a development cycle and more time. And they're obviously better at it than CD Projekt Red. But I don't think that they're the type of company that can do an on-the-cheap AAA game. Let's see. See, Saldana, you'd rather them use the money to bring big-name games to the platform like Call of Duty. So I agree that's probably... I think that's a lower cost acquisition. And at a certain point, they're not going to have to pay money for that if they keep it running. If Stadia remains a platform for a long time to come, I think that that's eventually just going to... It's going to turn around so they can stop paying other companies to bring in games. And eventually, they might even have companies paying them to put their games on the platform. We'll see. I hope that that day doesn't come, but maybe it does. Let's see. Austin, I would have put SG&E all in on AR. I don't really... I'm still not sure how AR and streaming are gonna work. I don't feel like that's a viable path. Because having even like a 3 to 4 millisecond delay, that is... When you're turning your head, the kind of delay you would have is not good. And granted, you can be streaming. You can stream the entire image, and that's accessible. That's a viable option. But when you factor in that you're also going to be moving around and doing other actions, having any sort of delay, it's a really, really bad experience with AR and VR. So I'm skeptical about doing something like that with Stadia. See, Saldana, it was a mistake to open it to begin with. I don't agree with that entirely. I think it was a mistake to open it with the intent of making it a Stadia exclusive company. SG&E absolutely should have been making games for multiple platforms. And that way, in the process, they could basically do what Nintendo does. Nintendo makes a crapload of first-party games, and they have become by far the most popular games that sell on Nintendo systems, so that makes sense. And those games typically get the best features that Nintendo offers in a console. They actually implement the features that really highlight what makes a console great. So I think that's okay. The problem is how do I want to say this? The problem is that I think opening as a Stadia-only platform, or Stadia-only company, was bound to give them no avenue to make sufficient money on the games that they were building. So the smart move, I think, is target multiple platforms, and then try to find ways to fit in Stadia exclusive features into games when they're running on Stadia, and then everything else be damned. Like, everybody else just gets the standard run-of-the-mill version of a game, but for people playing on Stadia, they get the good version. And I think that changes that dynamic a lot. Let's see. So, and you go on and say, Stadia is barely a year old. It's not going to be an instant success. I completely agree. And I would certainly point to, I know that this is going back before most people would know the history on it, but I would easily point to the original Xbox. When I was in college, Microsoft actually came by and was showing off the Xbox to us before they were showing it to a lot of other places. It was kind of a really weirdly timed, neat perk. And a lot of people were really curious what was going to be happening with this thing. Anyway, the Xbox was a really cool thing to be seeing at the time, but we didn't know if it would have any chance of success. And at the time, honestly, a lot of people thought it was really dumb for Microsoft to try to get into games. And then you look at the numbers when the Xbox came out. Opening month of sales for the console, of course, it was sold out everywhere. It sold really well because a lot of people wanted to try it, but it still paled in comparison. And the original Xbox over the course of its lifetime, it wasn't a failure, but it didn't do super well. Microsoft did not make a lot of money on the original Xbox. Now, fast forward a few generations, and okay, granted, the Xbox One may not have really been a good example either, but Microsoft overall has definitely profited on the Xbox. It took time. The gaming industry is a really big industry that it's sort of slow moving. People don't adopt things that quickly or easily. Google needed to stick it out with, not just with Stadia in general, but they have to stick it out with game studios. If you spend a lot of money putting together a game studio and then never actually release a title, I mean, technically I think they released one, and they say that they've got a couple more coming, but they're going to be like the near-term games, not any big AAA titles. If you never ship a product, of course it's never going to make money, and you're never going to have this intellectual property that you can then sell somewhere else or do something with. And now that's, again, not to say that maybe they don't have something in the works that they could have sold off to a company, but who knows. So I don't think it was a mistake to open the company, or to open the studios. I don't think it was a mistake to try to do this. I just think that they took the wrong monetization strategy. Entirely wrong strategy. I think they should have actually I think they should have followed what every other game studio did. Try to launch on as many platforms as possible, and occasionally take advantage of Stadia's features wherever you can. Is this? Oh, no. I know this is irrelevant and off topic, but man, I hate Instagram's notifications. I don't need to hear that two people I know followed another person who they've been following for like as long as they've been on Instagram. Stop telling me that. I have been told repeatedly about them following the same person for years. Absolutely horrendous. Is there a setting to get rid of that particular notification? Because if there is, I admit I haven't really gone looking for it, but I need to fix that. If there's okay, there is a setting. So I I'm gonna go look at fixing that later. Austin. Oh wait, no, see Soldano, the last comment that you did in that little stretch was, if Google could at least get it on more TV devices, that would help with getting new users. Well, yeah, completely agreed there. And the fact that it's still not on Sabrina's, that's a problem. I was willing to overlook that delay for a little while longer, but I think at this stage, it's too long now. Let's see, within the app and also notification channels. All right, yeah, I'll look at it. I've been really lazy about fixing it, but yeah, I need to get rid of those because I get so many Instagram notifications just about like people who followed other people. I want to know when new people follow me. I don't want to know when I'm getting, or I don't want to know about the random, oh, hey, we think you'd also like this other person. I don't know. I don't. Especially because I've looked at some of the stuff people I know follow on Instagram. It's real bad. Like, I don't want to see their posts. Anyway, let's see. So Austin, I think modern Google is actually pretty bad at synergy between products, which might be intentional, but it ends up costing them a lot of overhead. Yeah. No, companies like Apple are literally famous for their vertical integration, for product synergy, for, go ahead and name all the other buzzword terms. They're really good at this. They release products that are focused on keeping people happy with an ecosystem, on making good use of an ecosystem. Google's bad at this. Honestly, I wish whoever it is that had given the directive that everybody needed to find a way to integrate Google Plus, whoever that was, that jagoff needs to still be in the company and giving commands. Because that may have been a crappy thing to do, but at the same time, it worked. It fucking worked. Google Plus gained users and gained usage because of that. It was doing pretty well. And then they were like, nah, let's take this away. People don't like it. And when that happened, it's like, yeah, okay, cool. They're announcing that they're taking all this Google Plus integration away. And it wasn't just that they were taking away the required Google Plus usage. They took away features. They took away actual features that people liked to use with Google Plus. And as a result, all of a sudden, everyone was given their concrete confirmation. Google is killing Google Plus. Their social network's dead. Stop using it. Anyway, let's see. Cecil Donna said, on the Stadia news, though, I think it's still possible Google will release exclusives from third-party game studios on Stadia, kind of like Naughty Dog. I agree. I think that is probably going to happen. At a bare minimum, I'm really confident we're going to see. And I just wrote about this like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Whatever their free weekend was for. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon something. I forget what the colon something was, but that game exists on every platform out there practically. I think it may be missing on Nintendo, but otherwise it's on like everything. Breakpoint, thank you. Yeah, it is like everywhere. The thing is, it has Stadia exclusive features. It actually has the thing where you can see other people's screens in a little window on your screen. Now, is this useful in the game? Supposedly it's really good for coordination. I haven't played the game, so I don't know. But hello, this is a perfect example of companies saw a thing, they implemented a Stadia exclusive feature, and it's kind of neat. They can definitely still get companies to do this, and there's no reason not to. And yes, they could certainly pay for exclusives, or at least timed exclusives. They did that with Orcs Must Die 3, which may not have really been the right one to do that with, but yeah, they can do this. And for whatever reason, they just aren't. Not yet. Stadia is still also just barely over a year old, so making assumptions about what will and won't happen is dumb. Which is also why I'm saying any blog that is predicting Stadia is dead is dumb. Just saying. Also, for anyone who's predicting Stadia is on Death Watch, all right, technically, your Death Watch I'll kind of acknowledge is possibly a more grounded opinion, but it's also still needlessly hyperbolic. You don't need to make a very overt declaration like that unless you're just trying as desperately as possible to make yourself sound like you have a big opinion. So, let's see. I think that mostly covers why shutting down the studio made sense, economically speaking, but it was also a dumb idea. There are just different ways that it could have been run, and I think that's the issue. The one catch, though, and I will just say the obvious catch, we don't know what happened with Jade Raymond. I don't know how much really hinged on her. I don't know what her involvement in other projects has been. I don't know how competent or skilled she is. Maybe like honestly, a lot of people in the tech industry, maybe she's kind of a fake it till you make it type of person. I doubt it, given the background. That's a pretty good resume. So I doubt that's the case, but maybe it is. Maybe the projects that she was heading up were really going off the rails. Maybe because it's a new studio, things were going off the rails. Maybe she got better offers and just decided, screw this, I'm going to go to somewhere else that's better or offering more money. We could speculate all day long about why Jade left and whether or not Jade leaving had any relevance. It doesn't really matter. What matters is, at the end of the day, there could have been other factors leading to closing the studios besides just the economics of releasing games. Let's see. Saldana. Google never handles bad PR well. They should have communicated a roadmap for Stadia after this news. I agree. I don't know about a roadmap. I think a better message about Stadia would have been the better idea. I don't think they necessarily needed to tell people what's coming or when or how. But I think they did need to be a little more direct about saying Stadia was not going to change for its current users, or negatively change for current users. I think if they had just made a very clear comment about that, that would have been sufficient. You don't even have to tell people what's coming or how things are going to happen. You just have to tell them, don't worry, if you enjoy Stadia today, you can count on it still being like this or better for the next couple of years. Just something to prevent the inevitable onslaught of stupid commentaries. Anyway, and I'm gonna be coming back to that part of the news in just a minute. Now, the news we all came here to discuss: Google Pay is available for 22 more banks. Oh God. The constant AP post listing each new bank. Believe me, I know. Oh, yeah, like they should be Stadia should be promising a hardware refresh this year or something. What do you mean by I mean, I have my own idea, but what do you mean by a hardware refresh? Because you could be talking about the controllers, and I want better controllers. I don't like the Stadia controller that much. It's okay. I've certainly held worse, but I'm not a fan. You could be talking about the servers, and I actively agree. They need to. I don't think they even need necessarily quote unquote better servers, or as you're pointing out, GPUs. I think they need different servers and GPUs. They need to have different configurations. So a game that has been very fine-tuned and optimized for a particular architecture has that architecture to play on. And likewise, yeah, I know ray tracing would be great. So right now they've got a whole bunch of Radeon GPUs in there. Well, you know what would be great? Let's have some NVIDIA GPUs in there too. Put in some top tier NVIDIA hardware. And that way, games that are really well optimized for NVIDIA, let them run on NVIDIA. Anything that is designed for Radeon, let it run on Radeon. Because there is, without doubt, there are differences in some games. Some games absolutely run way, way better on one brand's hardware than another. So yeah, that would be such a good move. So yes, hardware refresh of their servers would be fantastic. I'm honestly wondering how much they're still trying to roll out and build new server farms, and if maybe that's the reason that they haven't started doing any big upgrades. And all that also being said, they've only had these big data centers, server farms for Stadia for a pretty short period of time. You gotta figure they probably want to get a little bit more life out of what they've already built. And they do have to make some judgments based on costs. So I can get why they haven't done it yet. But it would be good if they could very clearly tell people, yes, we have plans for blank. Like, tell people, yes, we're definitely going to put some NVIDIA hardware in. Yes, we're definitely going to do this or do that. We're going to put in this type of support. Tell people that, because they want to hear it. Anyway. Okay, so regarding the other part of the news, and I know I've been talking about this for an hour and a half already. So the other part of the news, Stadia is presumably going to white label the service. And first off, a lot of blogs talk about this like, oh my god, this means they're killing Stadia. Like I said before, and it's been a while ranting, that's fucking stupid. If you see a blog saying this, stop reading there, because they suck. They aren't worth your time. They're editorializing a piece of news into something that is actually a fucking lie. But now that I'm done saying that, here's the thing. White labeling Stadia. I don't remember where I said this or how I got this out, but I said this within, I'd say the first couple weeks of Stadia launching, if not, possibly first couple months. But I said this at least a year ago. It was gonna happen. I've always predicted. I mean, this was my very first prediction about Stadia. I think actually could have even been before I had it to play. Stadia 100% was always going to be white labeled. There was always going to be some form of that. And I remember, I know some of us talked about this in the past. We all were in agreement at some point, like being able to run Photoshop or video editors on Stadia, it just made sense. It's something we all saw this coming. It wasn't just going to be for gaming. It was going to be for all high performance or like highly demanding things. Stadia made sense to make other things happen. There was no point for it to just be limited to a gaming service. Games are just the hardest thing. And if you can crack games, you can make everything happen. You want to mine Bitcoin on it? Maybe if Google was mining Bitcoin on those servers, then they would have had enough money to keep the game company alive. You wonder how much the value of the space and the Stadia servers taking up in a Google Cloud data center. So I actually have a bit of a theory on this. And it's the same theory that I had going back to the beginning. I honestly think a lot of those servers are already running other stuff. Those servers aren't just for Stadia. It just so happens that at various points in time, as Stadia players come online, servers stop doing other projects that have low priority, and they pick up Stadia duty. Obviously, they have to be equipped with GPUs and other things in order to do everything, but I honestly think those servers were already pulling multiple duty. Let's see. 50 billion in profit announced yesterday. For whom? Because I'm assuming Stadia didn't make 50 billion. That would be impressive. And wildly unbelievable if it had been Stadia. Alphabet, 50 billion. Yeah, that kind of tracks. That's up from, what was it, 43 billion last year? I honestly don't remember well enough, but oops. Let's see. Valuation. Okay, well, cool. We'll just open up this one. Okay, so they made 57 billion. 57 billion in revenue, reported 46 in revenue. Last quarter? Oh, okay, I see. Wait, what? Abner, your writings needs to be better organized. Okay. So they're up. That's the key detail. $5 billion lost to Google Cloud in 2020. No exciting things. Yeah, if there's a loss, I assume it's not a real loss. I bet it's in expansion. because that's the thing that makes the most sense. Google very likely is anytime you expand on stuff, you're building out more data centers, making bigger investments. That's always 100% of the time you're rolling out new things and just writing it off as a loss. Anyway, so back to what Stadia is doing with the white labeling. I remember I had a lot more I wanted to say on this, and I'm sort of spacing on what all of it is. Like I said, I should have made notes, but fundamentally, I think it was always very predictable that the company that develops this, basically the best game streaming service and technology available thus far, it was always natural that at some point they were going to say, you know, we can make more with this. And it makes sense to do that. And it makes sense to do that for all the reasons why you could point to companies that used to be in the consumer goods market and then at some point said, screw this noise, we're going to get into business. We're going to get into the enterprise. Look at IBM. IBM was a company, and you can also point to HP. You can also point, honestly, to Microsoft. All of these companies at one time made products primarily focused on regular customers, on the standard user, on, you know, people. When your average customer pays you $1,000 a year, or even less than that sometimes. The problem with that market is it sucks. In order to play in those markets, you have to make a product and support it. Supporting a product that is bought by millions of people is expensive, because not all of those people require support, certainly, but a lot of them do. Ask Apple. Apple spends a fuck ton of money supporting its products. Now, they're obviously still wildly successful and making way more money than the company probably deserves to, but they spend a lot of money on support because, you know, they sell millions and millions of iPhones. They sell millions of MacBooks. They sell some number of Mac Minis and iMacs and maybe even a couple dozen Mac Pros. They sell a lot of products, and every single one requires service. Not only that, but they have to do a ton of marketing. They have a high acquisition cost per customer. Well, not high. It's a reasonable acquisition cost, but they're paying money to get a customer to come to them to get their products. It's expensive. So you have to sell a ton of units to make that a profitable endeavor. And you have to find as many ways to lower your support costs as possible. Whereas, what if you go into enterprise? What if you're selling only to enterprise customers? You have one customer who pays you literally like 10,000 times more than your customer would if you were selling to individual people. When you're IBM and your customer is I don't know, I was about to say Dominion, but if you're IBM and your customer is oh damn it, what was that defense contractor or the oil company or any of the things that Dick Cheney was involved in? Let's say Halliburton. Let's say that you're IBM and your customer is Halliburton. You know how many customers you have to support? Uno. Single customer. One lone customer. Now, technically, it's probably actually going to be like a couple dozen or maybe even 100 or so people that you'll interact with, but it's one big ass customer who's got obviously very specific demands and requirements, and it's a customer that costs more to support than, let's say, Apple's typical iPhone customer. But by scale, way less. Costs phenomenally less. That's the reason why it makes sense for Google to white label Stadia, because they can build this thing and sell games to individual customers. At the end of the day, each of those individual customers might say, you know what, I'll buy the game, but I'm not gonna keep paying for the service. And you've got individual customers who are gonna run into performance issues and challenges along the way. And they're gonna be confused, and they're gonna need somebody to hold their hand through setting up a controller and things like that. They're gonna have billing issues. They're going to have to do advertising. That acquisition cost. Think of the acquisition cost. Getting somebody to say, oh, you know what? I'm going to buy a game on Stadia instead of buying it for my PC or my console. Convincing people to spend that money is not cheap. Your acquisition costs are high. Meanwhile, if they can spend more money maybe up front to acquire, we'll just throw out a name. Let's say they do acquire, or not acquire, but let's say that they create a partnership with, I want to say Naughty Dog, but I know that would be a dumb example. But let's and I want to say Ubisoft, because the only reason I'm not using that one as an example is because we know they're working on their own streaming service. But let's go Gearbox, just because. Let's say Gearbox decides, hey, we're gonna make a game and we need it to be cloud available. We need it so people can play it on that platform instead of playing it anywhere else. Let's say that happens. You've got one customer. You interact with a handful of people from that company, and that one customer is paying you a lot more money. They're going to handle all the marketing cost for their individual game. They're going to handle all of the acquisition cost, and they're going to be paying you to do all of this stuff on the side, and chances are you can charge them just about as much as you effectively would have been charging people. But now you don't have all these other costs associated. It's common sense. This is why enterprise is lucrative. It's not that the enterprise customers pay, oh my god, so much money. It's because they're just cheaper to support. That's why enterprise is a better deal. That's why so many companies want to serve enterprise. It's not that more money's coming in, it's that less money goes out. And that is a much better deal. Let's see. Let's see, Saldana. On the Google revenue, do you think it's worrying in the long term for investors that like $40 of the, or sorry, 40 billion of the 56 billion of their profits is still from advertising? Especially with governments going after that business model. Let me come back to that, because I actually do have some opinions on it, but that one might need a little bit more lining it up. Okay, I made a note of that. So the basic issue here is that Google has, damn it, 2 phones and a, yep, we don't care, go away, just be a pretty picture, thank you. It makes sense. in every conceivable way for them to white label Stadia. So now a hypothetical Gearbox is going to pay a monthly bill plus I assume a usage bill for making their game available. They will now take all the costs. They will assume all the expense of running credit card transactions, selling to individual customers, supporting individual customers. And Google just does the, honestly, kind of now the easy work. They already developed the hard thing. They solved the hard problems. They'll keep solving them. They'll keep doing more to improve the situation. But at the end of the day, they've got the easy job with this. They stand to make huge profits by serving as enterprise providers as opposed to the end provider. Now, does that mean that they're going to get rid of Stadia as we know it? No. It's actually, in my opinion, absolutely colossally stupid to come to that conclusion. Because why close that door? There's no reason to close that door unless it's costing them money just outright. There is no profitable path with what they are doing right now. Not even talking scale. I mean, just like per customer. If at the end of the day they sell a game and they're still going to lose money because of the persistent cost of streaming, as opposed to or supporting that game and streaming it if someone is not paying their subscriptions. If that is too expensive, okay, then that's a problem. But if they're able to sell a game and be profitable, then that's worth it. They might as well keep it up. Here's the thing. Everyone's predicting Stadia dies. I don't see that happening. What I see happening is it turns into something kind of like Steam, but you play the game on the Stadia server instead of on your PC. There's no reason they can't be Steam, but also provide this other service to game companies that want to control their own destiny. Haha, Destiny, I know. But yeah, for, let's say, again, a hypothetical Gearbox game, that maybe Gearbox ends up making something kind of like World of Warcraft, where it's big ass game, big ass, open world experience, MMO style game, huge thing. And for whatever reason, they want to run it on Stadia, hypothetically. They control, again, like I said, they control selling it, they control marketing it, they control the entire experience from top to bottom, except for the parts that obviously Google has to provide. That can live in its own little world. But then Gearbox can also say, you know what, we're launching next year, we're going to launch Borderlands 4. And, duh, we're going to sell it on PC, we're going to sell it on this, we're going to sell it on that. And we're also going to sell it on Stadia. Why wouldn't we? And at that point, that's the thing. Both of these things can exist in the same world. There's nothing stopping it. Which is why I'm baffled at this notion that Stadia is somehow just going to vanish from the face of the earth. I don't see that happening. Even if they're white labeling it, there's not a reason to predict that the Stadia game service goes away for end customers. It could. I'm not saying it won't. But the prediction that it will is ignorant, short-sighted, and serves no purpose. Because it is not necessarily wrong, but it's patently wrong to have come to that conclusion the way that so many sites have. That being said, man, I will circle back really briefly just to say, holy crap, could they have run Stadia any worse? I mean, they're at least 6 months late delivering most of the features they promised would have been there. Come on. It's so bad. It's so bad. They needed to make so many things happen faster. Anyway, let's see. Austin said Google sees this and that's why they're moving into hardware and other bets. In regards to Cecil Donna's comment right above. And yeah, I do agree with that. Including AP. Kinda. Because Corbin's this is Corbin's post that I've left the hero image up, but yeah, the body of this post, I'm setting aside the title, which he did not write. The body of the post covers this pretty fairly. But there is another post that may or may not have come out on AP that I think is, it has some valid arguments, but I think its overall premise is missing a broader point. Anyway, let's see. Google had a huge ML advantage for making games in Stadia. Wonder where that tech goes. I don't know. That's a fair question. Anyway, let's we'll switch back here and let's tackle that question. Google revenue. How do investors feel that the substantial sum of their money is coming from advertising? Well, I agree. I think they're nervous about that. I think they do want to see something happen there. Google has never been 100% advertising fed. They've always had a couple of side businesses. But I think it's a safe bet that with a company this old, they want to see diversification. They want to see other strategies for making money. And obviously they have them. I don't know if Android technically is profitable, but obviously they are collecting a fair amount of money from partners. So I think there's something to it. I doubt Stadia is profitable, at least so far. But I think it's reasonable to say there probably are... I mean, we could obviously go looking through the breakdown, but I have a funny feeling the things that are profitable... Actually, is there any chance that... do we have a breakdown anywhere here? Yes, we do. So... Okay. Alright, I'm just looking at this now. Okay. Revenues, acquisition cost, number of employees. Okay. Google search, another. Okay, so yeah, Google Cloud does not account for a very large portion of that. It you know, nearly 4 billion is still significant, but it's less than 10%. I mean, substantially less than 10% of what they're getting out of advertising. Yeah. But to be fair, this is also why they're investing in all these other companies. This is why money went into Waymo. This is why there's money in whatever the name of that genetic service is. That's why, obviously, they are doing things like Nest. As you go down the list of all these other things that have nothing to do with advertising, the reality is, yeah, Google is trying to diversify, but I don't know that it's really... I don't know that it's moving the needle enough. And it's hard to fault them for that. That's to be expected. But it does burn a little bit. And I'm sure investors are probably looking for some sort of assurance that Google is going to change that path at least a little bit. Google's market value is that of Australia's GDP. Speaking of Australia, I wanted to talk about that story too. And I forgot to open that link. That's one we can definitely pull up. Oh wait, did I? Did I forget to open that link? I'm sure that I opened it. I opened it to a different tab or something? But I wanted to definitely talk about... Oh! I just didn't recognize it. Okay. Yeah, we're also gonna... I do want to hit on the Australia story. Yeah, I opened it from Discord. I forgot it was from The Guardian. I didn't recognize the icon. Verily offered you a job last week. Congrats on the offer. Are you going to take it? But yeah, Alphabet makes plenty of money, and it is a large company with its fingers in a lot of, or toes in a lot of different pools. I don't know. Anyway, Bing is an Australian slang for car wreck. Is that true? Because that is spectacular. Wonder if they would also use the same term for a train wreck. Just curious. And fun fact, I almost got a job at Bing many years ago. But anyway, hope I didn't just get something in my eye. Anyway, yeah, well, let's see. Any other thoughts really quickly on Google's revenues? I think I said it all right there. I honestly do think that investors want to see other ways of making money. They want to see some diversification. The thing is, though, I'm not sure that really is going to solve the bigger issue that, as you brought up, that's part of what governments are going after. Governments are trying to crack down on advertising. They're trying to crack down on data tracking and privacy. They're trying to separate Google's various businesses to say, hey, we don't want the same company that owns search to also own advertising and maps and a few other things. The thing is, I think if Google finds another way to make money, I don't think it's going to solve that problem. Not for any government. I think every government's still going to be looking at that and saying, nah, we still really want this one company to not have its fingers in every different pot. They're touching everything in some way, shape, or form, and that's what everyone's creeped out by. It's the same reason people don't like Amazon. Amazon has too much access, too much power. So if Google finds another way to make money, and diversifies their income, it's just going to give governments more reason to say, oh, well, look at you. You are so profitable. We don't like that. We're going to try to separate you or regulate you more. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't. Quite the opposite. But I don't think it changes anything. What the hell is that icon? I have something in my taskbar. I don't... Oh. It's for Gemini. We'll just kill... Oh. I killed that and it's still in the taskbar. Or not taskbar, but whatever that is. Let me guess. It's still running in activities. I bet anything. Look at that. There it is. Let's just kill you. Watch, you're not gonna... Oh, you did quit. Yep, and the icon went away. I don't like apps that do that. Okay. So... Alright, switching gears somewhat. The Australia thing. I know at this point it's kind of slightly older news, but... yeah, if you already saw the post that I put in RambleCast in Discord, and we'll transition that one over. So the news that came earlier in the week was that that Australia is working on forcing, or not forcing, but they want to charge Google for displaying oh, damn it, phone, stop it. I have triggered my phone so many times today. Okay, anyway. So Australia wants to do the whole thing where they're going to charge the search engines for showing snippets from websites. And this is mostly a play to give news companies money. I mean, ultimately that's all this is. They're saying news companies don't make enough money, so they should be charging Google for displaying just a few words from every article. And I mean, logically, I think this is catastrophically stupid. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think that certain things on Google should be that way. I can't tell you how many times I've searched for something that can be done as like a step-by-step guide, and the result is a little like 50-word snippet of text, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I need. I don't need to open the website. I just needed these couple of steps, and it got me where I needed to go. And so, yeah, to some extent, yeah, Google probably does owe those people money. Does it owe a news website money for giving the first few words to confirm that what the search engine found is what you actually wanted? I don't think so. But, you know, regardless, they passed that law. That's the game they want to play. And Google has now threatened to leave. They just straight up basically said, all right, if Australia wants to charge us an unreasonable amount of money to keep operating search in the country, or continent technically, then yeah, we're just gonna raise our middle finger and walk away. Which I think is probably, I think that's a little bit of Australia probably taking the wrong, or it's a lot of Australia taking the wrong approach, but it's also Google being kind of ham-fisted about it. Though I have a funny feeling that this is a call bluff situation, regardless, Microsoft being ready to jump on this is hilarious to me. You know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, Microsoft has been eager, dying for an opportunity like this. They just want to get Bing somehow into relevance. And this is going to be their opportunity. Ish. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if people are still doing everything they can to keep using Google, even inside of Australia. I wouldn't be surprised if Bing does not catch on. I really, really would not be surprised if Microsoft enters this market and does everything that they're supposed to for the first 6 months to a year, and then starts getting creative, just conveniently showing not showing snippets from articles, just to save a few bucks here and there. And then that'll turn into they'll read the article themselves, reinterpret the language, and maybe give hints about what you found, but without showing the actual copyrighted materials. I just have a funny feeling we're going to see a whole hell of a lot of sneakiness solving that problem. Google's gonna give everybody in Australia free Google One VPN. That'd be hilarious. Also, not necessarily a bad idea. I will say, what I want to hear more than anything is what Australians think of this. I'm curious, genuinely, truly curious. How many Australians are reading this news, hearing this news, and going, "Wait, you're going to take away my Google? I'm not okay with this." And I admit, I'm doing more of a New Zealand accent, so ignore my terrible accent. But anyway, even I have to admit that one started better than it ended. But yeah, I just think that this is going to end up being a comedy show, as all of the... Sounds Cornish? I'll take that. I have a funny feeling Australians at large don't give a crap about this. And they're probably looking at this whole situation and just saying, wow, you guys, it just looks like you're on a hunt for money. Like, you're just... Up front, you're saying that this is about making sure that media companies are getting paid. But in reality, you're pretty much just saying, screw it. Whoever's going to pay us the most to do the thing we want, they're the ones that we're going to help out. You can tell that's what this is. I don't think the Australian government cares that much about their media conglomerates at getting like an extra whatever amount of money from Google. I don't think they care that much about that. I think they care a lot more about who's covering the bill to do this. So, it is, again, the typical governments are, in whatever way they are, corrupt. And I have a feeling this has a lot more to do with corruption than it does actually balancing the scales. But again, that being said, I think it's hilarious. Microsoft was so quick. One might even say Bing is a thirsty bitch. Anyway, so yeah, that happened. It's a good, funny example of stupidity. And I have a funny feeling it's also not going to last that long. I could be wrong, but I have a hunch that right around the time that Microsoft gets in there, Google's probably going to be a little frustrated with that possibility. Assuming that even happens. None of this is a done deal yet. But I have a funny feeling Google's going to drop the act eventually, and they'll go back to Australia and basically just say, all right, well, fine, we'll make some changes. We're not going to pay this bill, but we'll make changes to make it more palatable. Or we'll see, because who knows? Maybe Australia has some really wackadoo rules in that bill that might not be acceptable, but more to judge on that later. Also, for real, if Australia has a problem with Google doing this, I'd love to see how Reddit is being handled, because Australia is doing nothing to Reddit, and Reddit is by far just as much a bad offender as Google or any other search engine. Let's see. So, switching topics. By the way, did we have any other specific things to hit on? Feel free to mention in chat. Okay. Apparently it's only Google and Facebook who would have to pay. Yeah, that to me is a bigger problem, because Reddit is far and away a bigger offender than anything else. And wait, not other search engines? Let's see, what did The Guardian say about this? Communications Minister Paul Fletcher said Google dominated Australia, but there were other players, including Microsoft and DuckDuckGo, that were talking to the government about replacing it. Let's see. Because I don't see how they can target only 2 companies and leave the rest alone. I'm skimming over this article real quick. Okay, so one of the quotes says, look, ultimately, at the end of the day, if you want to do business in Australia, you need to comply with the laws of the sovereign government of Australia. Yeah, I don't think that this is... I don't think that they are targeting just those 2 companies in the explicit, like, everyone else can behave the way they want, but these 2 have to pay. I don't think they're doing that. I think it's just been made clear that those 2 don't want to play ball. And I think everyone else to some extent does. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else. Yeah, I don't... Nah, nothing else is mentioned here. Okay, let's... Okay, April 20th, 2020, the Australian government asked the ACCC to develop a mandatory code of conduct to address bargaining power imbalances between Australian news media businesses and digital platforms, specifically Google and Facebook. The ACCC released a draft code for public consultation on July 31st. Oh, so, okay, it's not a law, it's a union. Effectively. A collective bargaining union. So, alright, yeah, I guess that makes sense why that would justify targeting specific companies. The thing is, though, if they give preferential treatment to anybody else who's going to step in, they're going to have the exact same problem. It's just that those companies that step in are going to be using copyrighted content in their search engines the same way. So this isn't changing the outcome. It's a bad sidestep, which when I see that, what it tells me is, again, this is an extortion plan. The only reason that they are doing this is they're trying to extort money out of Google and Facebook, which I'm okay with. They should be, honestly. It's totally okay. They should absolutely be doing that. But I don't think that's changing anything. This is still ultimately going to be this is something that everyone's going to have to pay into eventually. And you can pretty much bet on it. At some point, Google and Facebook are just going to straight up sue the government for being targeted. Other digital platforms may be added to the code if they hold a significant bargaining power imbalance with Australian news media businesses in the future. Okay. Yeah, this strikes me as something that's not going to pass very well in courts. At least I would assume. I don't know enough about how Australian courts tend to rule and stuff like that, but yeah. Man, I don't know what it is, but I feel like talking today has just been 10 times harder. Anyway. Okay, so the overall thought on this is still, it's going to look ugly. And you paste it in that link to 9 to 5. I'm quickly looking at this. So, okay, we'll transition that one. So the quote I assume you're talking about is, some businesses take off in the first year and others take many years. Though we haven't consistently succeeded yet in AGS, I believe we will if we hang in there. Yep. So, yeah. I mean, it's definitely my opinion already, too, so I'm not going to disagree with it. I think it is kind of funny that Amazon's like, yo, pay attention to us. We really want your attention. Attention, please. You know, it's the let's try to slipstream in on top of someone else's news announcement. We'll find a way to kind of hype ourselves up. Can't say I blame them, but at the same time, it just looks tacky. We'll see how well Andy Jassy does. Though it's not like Amazon is known for their elegant anything. And we're gonna have to see how Andy Jassy does after all of the crap that went on with Amazon last year. That should be real fun. Wonder how much of this had to do with people showing up on Jeff Bezos's like the sidewalk outside of his house with like guillotines and threatening to kill him. I have a funny feeling at least a small part of that is influential in him deciding, you know what, being CEO is not worth it. I'm just going to go find something else to do. Aside from that, I honestly don't even have much opinion on him stepping down from the CEO position. I just, it's hard to care. It's not like most of the stuff that he does is really all that interesting in the broader sense. This track that's playing it's halfway through and it has like almost no sound. Yeah, or well, not a lot. Anyway, maybe I should take this one out too. I guess if I turn up my audio, I do get a little bit more. Yeah, it's not bad. Okay. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of, I don't feel like there's a lot of interesting stuff to say about Bezos stepping down. It's the shuffling of the people in charge. I doubt this is, honestly, I don't think it's going to really have much of an impact on Amazon's business. Amazon is one of those companies that kind of runs itself. Let's see. You link to AGS. Their game list is weak. Half were mobile games. Okay, so I am gonna quickly pick on, because I think that this kind of demonstrates my point. 9 to 5, this very last paragraph here. Quote, standing in contrast to Google's decision, Amazon appears to be committed to crafting video games, and having Jassy now take on the role of CEO seems to solidify that. Amazon's own cloud gaming offering, Luna, stands to benefit from any first-party games that Amazon Game Studios produces. Okay, the second half of that's not too significant, but that first half, standing in contrast to Google's decision, Amazon appears to be committed to crafting video games. Where does that conclusion actually come from? I mean, if you take literally no news or information from anywhere but the last few days, all right, that would be a reasonable conclusion to have. But yeah, count in, as C. Saldana brought up, their game list is predominantly mobile games. Add to it that, as far as I'm aware, AGS, and I guess we'll look at this real quick, have they actually produced any AAA games? Okay, so they had... Alright, these are all under Reflexive Entertainment or Southwind Games, which tells me that those don't really count. Somebody else built those. So Living Classics, Tofu Fury, Tales from Deep Space, Sev Zero, Lost Within, Till Morning's Light. The This is what, the Dragon's Lair remake thing? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Or I guess kind of like a re-release. The Grand Tour game, Crucible, New World, and then they canceled a few. So, is this one possibly AAA? Could be. It's an MMO, so that's hard to predict. MMOs technically are almost automatically AAA by some standards, but I think a lot of them, that's kind of dishonest. So what I get from this, they literally just canceled 2 in the last couple of days. Yikes. And will he finally become the philanthropist that he said he would when he retires? I doubt that. I don't think Bezos bucks are going to be going to any regular people. Oh, good stretch. New World. Okay, what is New World? Okay, you know, nice pre-rendered graphics. The imagery looks nice, but all of this stuff is rendered. Yeah, I don't... You can't tell AAA from this. I mean, it looks like it could be, for sure, but... coming out spring 2021. We'll see. Do I need an Amazon account to play it? No. Alright. Where can I purchase it? Amazon and Steam. Okay. Anyway. Oh yeah, how much will it cost? There's our real question. Let's see, how much is it on Steam? $40 to collect or to get the regular game. That's low for AAA. Since it's an MMO, and I would assume there's going to be some sort of monthly subscription. I guess I didn't look for that, but I'm going out on a limb and kind of making that presumption. Because of that, this could still be AAA. I mean, the graphics look good. Enough. But yeah, this doesn't necessarily mean it's good or all that significant. But yeah, anyway, to just pick on, again, to pick on that quote. I'm sorry, but to me, nothing about this is in any way really that separate from Google's decision to shut down SG&E. I just hear it as Google wants to, like, Google saw through how much it's going to cost to make a decent top tier game, whereas AGS honestly is not even trying to make top tier. Well, maybe they're trying to make this one. New World might be the new exception, but previously they haven't been trying to make top tier games. They've just they've been trying to make games, just games. So yeah, I'm not really feeling that. Is this the one I think it is? No, this isn't it. Oh, I'm thinking of Flight Control. Airport Mania was the thing that felt like a knockoff. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, I just don't, I am so tired of the narratives that are being pushed that don't necessarily ring true to what's happening with a game, with the industry, with studios. Because I mean, at the end of the day, it's dishonest. Okay, let's really quick, just taking care of a random little side thing. Oh, that's obnoxious. Okay, sorry, I'm just fixing something on a phone. Yeah, that's the thing I need to do. Okay, cool. So that solves that. Oh wait, does it? Huh, okay, yeah, that solves that. Cool. Cool as can be. Cool. Okay, so anyway. Yeah, so enough of that topic. I don't think there's much more to dig out from there. We can close those. Really briefly, just because it was kind of brought up, but it wasn't exactly the focal point. But yeah, so Gearbox was bought by THQ Nordic, or rather the parent company of THQ Nordic, which is Embrace, I think. Was that the name of it? Anyway, yeah, 2K is still going to be the publisher for Borderlands and just Gearbox in general, I guess. But yeah, this is basically just new parent company, Randy Pitchford staying on. Presumably Gearbox will continue kind of just operating as it does, but might be held to task a little more often. So yeah, I don't see this changing anything. I don't see Borderlands going away. I don't think this is going to kill any future the Borderlands franchise had. It might change a few things. It might complicate a few things. I don't know enough about how Embrace operates to predict too much else. Oh, I guess it's Embracer. So yeah, you know, I'm not sure yet if this is good or bad news. I assume in some way, shape, or form it's probably bad news, but we'll see. But other than that, I don't think there's much to say there. Okay, so let's see. Man, I just talking today, it is just taking it out of my voice. I can just feel like my throat doesn't normally give out this easily. I'm guessing maybe it's because Corbin's not on and I don't have that 2 hours of like taking breaks while my voice or while my speaking kind of adapts and gets used to speaking as much. The challenges we go through. Okay, so have you on for politics? ATV's new UI. I did open that tab. I haven't really looked too closely at it, but yeah, I had that tab open. Just from glancing over this, what I immediately got is, yeah, new UI. It looks like it looks like, in my loose interpretation of it, it's kind of a little bit hybrid between NVIDIA's home screen and I guess a little bit of a hybrid between that, the new Google TV UI, and the old Android TV UI. Which, yeah, that's fine. I mean, here's the thing. As long as it doesn't have big fat ads taking up too much space, I'm really not going to complain too much. My biggest complaint, my biggest issue with what I've seen is moving ads. Like, it's fine if you moving ads and changing the speed of changing ads. If either of those things happen, then it's bad. You don't want something that's so distracting that it's irritating for people to have on screen. But if it's just something that occasionally rolls through a carousel, I don't care. It just can't be rolling through a carousel at like an insane rate, which I think was the problem with the original Google TV ad. Maybe my throat's just giving out because I got like no sleep. I tried to get some sleep earlier and just absolutely failed. Let's see. Also, we can go back to that one. So, I don't know if... Okay, so kind of switching gears for politics for a moment. Oh, I actually wanted to be on the one down here. This one is now... This is another one of those things that is irritating me because it is and granted, when we get into politics, right-wing sites doing their typical bullshit line are going to be... My complaints about lying and dishonesty earlier, targeted at Stadia, they apply so perfectly here. This is one of those flawless examples of here's a site, Newsmax, I believe it was, or technically Jack Posobiec, is it? Yeah, that's an I. Jack Posobiec, whatever. Jack Bozo. Jack Bozo claiming that AOC, and for what it's worth, all of the other Congress people, claiming they weren't in the building. They weren't in the U.S. Capitol when the attack was launched. This is the thing currently trending on Twitter. Everyone's trying, all these people are trying to make it out like AOC was making up her whole story. Meanwhile, it's complete BS. She was in the Capitol building. She would have had to be on the fucking news. C-SPAN has camera footage of her being there. So it's ridiculous, but there you go. Anyway, yeah, so right now there's this trending topic that claims that she wasn't even in the Capitol building when the January 6th attack took place. But that's how they try to spin fact checking. When fact checking it becomes the weapon that gets used against you, you're gonna try to do whatever you can to spin it. Leave it to the crazies to always ruin things that are actually good. And speaking of crazies, might as well have a little fun with this one and transition to the obvious. MTG is probably going to lose her committee seats, as she should, because let's be honest, if you harbor terrorists, if you incite terrorism, if you are featuring and a fan of terrorists, you probably should not be in any way, shape, or form trusted to do anything in government. I don't know. Just that might just be me and my biased opinion. But for anyone who hasn't heard of MTG, she is the specialist of special crackpots. She's convinced in QAnon. She believes in all of these hardcore things. She's of course almost famous for having harassed repeatedly. There's one video that everyone always shows, but she's repeatedly gone after and harassed students from the Parkland school where the shooting occurred, 3 years ago or something. Yeah, this has just been she is wackadoo beyond description. And so after she contributed to inciting the riots on January 6th, plus all of the crazy shit she has said since then, people are trying to get her thrown off of committees that she was just assigned to. And with good reason, because she is a horrible monster creature that looks kind of like an inflated balloon that a kid poorly drew a face on. Just saying. It doesn't actually look like a face. Just saying. But anyway, let's see. Yeah, ratioed. Everyone was convinced. Okay, I know you're talking about the AOC thing. All of the people saying that AOC got ratioed, did they actually look at the numbers? Did they not understand what ratioed means? Because she wasn't getting ratioed. I mean, granted, enough people were trying. They pushed really hard for it, but at the end of the day, she was not actually getting ratioed. Let's see. Yeah, 3K comments to almost 50K likes, on the way up to 50K. Let's see. Here's the 2.6K versus 87K. These are in the hundreds versus almost 17K likes. Same with the next one down. Yeah, she's not getting ratioed. Morons. Yeah, she was ratioed when she very first tweeted, because a bunch of a-holes were all like hovering on her account, I'm sure. But it's plain to see she's not getting ratioed now. Sort by replies. Yeah, but I don't want to. That's giving views to useless a-holes that don't even deserve them anymore. I'm aware. I'm sure it was... the thing is, though, it doesn't really count as ratioing if you've got a bunch of people hovering over you just waiting for something to happen. Then it's just... that's your typical sort of brigading tactic. So it looks good for the few minutes that you can screenshot it, but eventually it flips back around. Oh god. I just saw Candace is trending on Twitter. You know that's Candace Owens. It's always Candace Owens. Okay. Candace Owens is just spewing total BS. All right. I'm not even going to show this on screen. It's just her being a useless, terrible monster. Oh, hey. Kyle Rittenhouse has violated a bond. That's a fun one. So this is the guy who, yeah, I went to the Kenosha protest, and he went out there. I think he was underage or something, but he went out there with a gun. A few people were, he panicked and panic shot one guy, and then basically panic shot another guy as a bunch of people started coming after him for killing the first one. And he had come from another state, brought a gun with him. It wasn't legal anyway. Yeah, so now he's breaking more laws. Wonderful. It's exactly what we like to see. Asshole. What does Twitter mean by AO Smollett? Okay, so AOC, obviously you know her as AOC. Smollett is a reference to Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett was the actor last year. He was the one who faked a here we go. The alleged assault on Jussie Smollett. He faked a hate crime. He hired two guys who were actually actors or had been actors on the same show that he was on. What show was that? The name is right on the tip of my tongue. Oh, I'm looking for it, but it is, oh my god, I can't, why can I not think of the name of that show? Seriously, Empire, that's what it is. Yeah, anyway, he faked the incident. He hired these guys to basically come beat him up. They did everything they could to make it look like a hate crime, but they were also completely incompetent about doing this thing. They screwed up a bunch of stuff. There were little details that kind of gave it away. An investigation started happening, at which point he basically fessed up to the whole thing being staged. And it was all for the purpose of negotiating a better contract on the show Empire. And then when this whole thing just went completely south, Empire was like, yeah, you're a psycho, dude. We're not having you back. And yeah, that was kind of it for him. Anyway, the joke here is that AOC is faking her trauma and the incident where she almost got killed. Which, to some extent, I can see an argument for saying maybe she is. I don't know enough about what happened. Maybe she is blowing it out of proportion. Maybe she isn't. It's hard to say because to some extent, it does seem like maybe her story is a little overblown. But it doesn't change the fact that 100%, if she had been anywhere if any of those rioters had an opportunity, I think at least a few of them were very intent on kidnapping and or killing her. So I don't think she's wrong to have called it what she did. But yeah, their big joke is that she made up the whole thing. It's all a big staged deal. And in their mind, once once the facts come out, she's gonna suddenly turn around and reveal she wasn't actually anywhere nearby, which of course is completely wrong. She obviously was, but that's, facts don't go very far in the Republican Party or within that circle. So yeah, anyway, that's where that nickname has come from. And it's not even trending anymore. At least not in the top 5 for me. I suppose it could be for some areas. Let's see. Skimming down a couple of things just to see if there's something of substance. I doubt there is. Hey, David Llama, how's it going, man? You're showing up late. Well, no, I guess this is about the right time. Oh, David, you missed a lot of ranting, actually. I had not entirely positive things to say about the blogosphere. I'm not a fan of it this week. The claims of Stadia's death, I think, are grossly premature. Yeah, you'll want to go back and rewatch the earlier parts. For what it's worth, I actually don't know how much longer I can go. My throat feels like it's hitting some limits here. Prepping for the big storm incoming. How bad is it looking for you? Where I'm at, we keep getting threatened with snow, and like we're getting occasional dustings and stuff like that, but fortunately nothing bad. And hopefully it stays that way, because after the snowmageddon from a couple years ago, I do not need another one. As far as I'm concerned, I am as done with snow as I can be. I'm perfectly happy visiting snow. I do not like living in places with snow, though. It pisses me off. Snow is absolutely awful to live in. I went to college in a place that got a ton of snow some years, and by ton of snow I mean literally like digging your car out from under the snow was a thing. You could leave the dorm and walk into the parking lot, and in order to dig your car out, you'd literally have to remember what parking space it was in and just start at the top and try not to scratch anything. Like, that was a very real experience for a number of people. Estimated 8 to 9 inches, first big storm this season for Wisconsin. Yeah, 8 to 9 inches is not great. It's not the worst thing in the world, but that sucks. Yeah, I remember drives home over the mountains from college, where the side of the road, because of all the snow plows that would go through, the sides of the road would have these walls of icy snow that would be like probably 12 foot high. I don't think I'm overestimating that. It was probably about 12 foot, give or take maybe a foot. That's not what she said. Oh man, I hated... Well, I mean, they were neat drives in a way, but at the same time, they were absolutely awful, because you couldn't even pull over on the side of the road if you needed to. If something went wrong, if anything happened, you just kind of had to keep going, because otherwise you were going to be... Like, the only place to stop was in was in a 2-lane road with traffic. And that's never a good idea. 12 feet of snow. And to be fair, it's not like it was 12 feet in a single snow or anything like that. It's not that even 12 feet of actual accumulation. It's that the snowplows would come through. They would pack snow up against a wall and blow a bunch of it over onto the other side, and it would pile up to 12 feet. But yeah, it would just be these huge walls of ice. Effectively ice. I mean, it was snow, but it was snow that had been packed in to the point of being ice. Yeah, it was not great. It was really, really bad. And I remember even as a kid having gone up into those same mountains, and there was a not really a ski or snow resort. It was just sort of like a winter resort up there. And in order to get between buildings, they would actually have to, they didn't bother. This didn't happen all years, but some years what they would have to do is they'd actually, instead of like carving out trails, they actually carved tunnels in the snow. The snow would actually get high enough sometimes that they just had to carve actual tunnels because they had to. Like that is weird to me. That's not a thing that seems like it should happen. But yeah, that's not great. I don't ever plan on living in that sort of environment again. Fortunately, where I live now, we only get a really big heavy snow about once every 8 years. We'll usually get some snow about every 4 years, and then every 8 years we get the, oh wow, this sucks snow. Like the hardcore, you're not going to have electricity for a few days. You're going to lose all services. You're just kind of trapped in the snow. Like that happens about once every 8. Not good. I do not like it at all. Cecil Donner brought up the Ford story. That's right. Android Automotive. So yeah. Ford adopting Android Automotive and Google Cloud in wide-ranging partnership. I only kind of read over this before, so I don't remember too much about it, but yeah, this is, to be specific, this is Android Automotive instead of Android Auto. This is the Android in the car as opposed to Android connecting to a car and projecting a screen. I definitely think that this is the way forward. Not that it doesn't have some drawbacks, but the thing is, Android Automotive can still run Android Auto apps, or, the projected services. Let's see, will it run CarPlay though? I don't know about that. I was under the impression that it wouldn't, but I'm not really sure. Does Android Automotive actually have any units out in the world yet? I didn't think it did. So it does support CarPlay? Okay, wow. I'm curious how that works. I mean, I think I do know, because the projection API that gets used is actually not... I mean, it's semi-proprietary, but it's not actually proprietary. So, any company can technically create a thing now that that does projection to a car screen. It's just, I think you have to have like some sort of certification or something to allow it. So, it's probably like a tokenized thing. But I haven't looked into this enough to be sure. Regardless, yeah, I'm assuming that what this will probably do is give people CarPlay in, or it'll give the ability for CarPlay to happen, but it's not necessarily going to be, I'm guessing it won't necessarily be like a it won't feel necessarily like a first party thing, would be my guess. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Anyway. Apple's rumored to be negotiating in investing in Hyundai. I still have no idea how to pronounce it. Even their own employees don't. But so they might be working on the Apple Car. That makes sense. I can easily see that. I've expected for a long time that the Apple Car, Hyundai. But seriously, I have heard it said so many different ways, even by people that work at the company. Higher level execs don't agree on how it's said, so something, and it is said differently in different countries, so you bet the Apple Car will not run Android Auto? I'll make that bet. Yeah, for sure. And when I say I'll make that bet, I mean I'm betting with you. There's no chance in hell that it's going to run Android Auto. Nor should it. I mean, realistically, there's no way running Android Auto makes sense out of the Apple Car. For what it's worth, I doubt it's even... I almost wonder if it will really actually run CarPlay. I have a feeling that CarPlay already exists in its current form, but whatever they do with it, I bet it's going to be a lot more custom. The individual apps still talk to an API, they still work with an API, and so they will still operate the exact same way from the app side. But I think what's going to end up happening with Apple is the actual experience, what it looks like, how it behaves on the screen. I bet they changed that. I bet it does not look that much like CarPlay as we know it. Which, to be fair, that's pretty much what happened with Google and Android Auto and Android Automotive. Automotive looks different, but it's not. It works. Okay, let me start again. The apps that work with Android Auto, they still work on Android Automotive, and they work the way that they're supposed to. But the overall look of Android Automotive does not match the overall look of Android Auto. So I'm sure Apple's going to do basically the same thing. They're going to do something more customized in we'll call it an Apple Car. And Austin, yes, I completely agree. Tesla, it's not that I'm driving one or have much experience with this, but yeah, I totally agree. They need to do something about phone integration in a big way. Because this stands out as one of the big weak points of Tesla. The fact that everyone else, you can hook your phone to your car with any other ecosystem, and you're probably going to get a good interface. Whereas with Tesla, you just have the interface in the car, and you're stuck there. Need a stock Android car? Oh my god. David, just glad that we moved past the crappy proprietary software. Yeah, I agree with that. The proprietary stuff is just so bad. It's disastrously bad. I don't feel like we've really moved past it because every company's still including some garbage subsystem. But you can ignore it like 80% of the time now. You have to use the old crappy thing to do like car setup and change some settings. Maybe you still use it for like a music player and or a handful of other features when you need them, or if you're one of those types of people that uses them. But man, once you're done with that stuff, it's so great that you can mostly just ignore it and never ever come back to looking at it again. That's so important. Okay, so really quick, I'm just gonna call it now because, man, my voice, I can just feel it. I don't think I have much left in it. So, we'll call it 15 minutes. I assume it'll be about 5 o'clock when I have to dip out. But yeah, I feel like I can't talk for too much longer. Not sure what that's about. But let's see. Anyway, yeah, cheers to Ford for getting involved in this, though. I'm happy to see that. That's, did I talk about Bezos? A little bit. I didn't really have a lot to say on Bezos. I don't think it's that interesting of a story. There's, it's the shuffling of rich people. And, I remember actually saying this back when all the tech companies were testifying in front of Congress. I don't think Bezos is involved in day-to-day stuff. Hardly ever. I don't think Bezos knows much about what's going on in Amazon anymore. I'm sure he's got a good grasp of a lot of things, but I think at this stage he has very little knowledge of what's actually happening at the mid to low levels. And as a result, I don't feel like changing a CEO matters at that stage. The stuff that we know and care about, I don't think he has anything to do with that stuff anymore. Maybe there's a few things like decisions related to Amazon Prime. There might be a decision about where and how to launch a new distribution feature. Things like that, I'm sure he's still involved with. But things like the accusations regarding what was it? The accusations that Amazon was involved in price fixing through Amazon Basics, that they were using customer data in order to pick out products that they should be selling. They were making recommendations that might have been stealing likely recommendation spots from other products. All of that stuff, I don't think Bezos has anything to do with those things. Maybe it gets run by him at some point and he gives like the thumbs up, thumbs down sort of reaction. I don't think he's doing much else. I think his involvement in the company is calling up some other company and saying, hey, we really want to use you for this. We want to work through this problem or solve this issue, and you're our solution. Like, that's the kind of involvement I imagine he has. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is really super involved in the low level stuff, but he doesn't seem like the type of guy who would be. Plus, he has entirely too much free time to be that involved in his own company. Let's see. What else was there? NC Saldana, I'm getting old. Nah, I'm old. But what matters, I still look young. Me with the scruffy whiteness going on. Now, anyway, what else was there? Oh, let's see. So, oh yeah. No. Okay. Nothing there. Spot Mini now has an arm attachment. Spot Mini. I'm going to have to look up what that even is. Oh! That's right. I didn't know about the arm attachment. That's good. Okay, let's Spot Mini arm. Let's see. Do we have something from the last oops. No, anytime. There we go. All right. What's it look like? Wait. Yeah, that's the right date. Here we go. Sure, we'll open this up in a separate. Oh, the arm attachment so looks like a mouth. The arm attachment so looks like a mouth. It's like a snake's mouth. Oh God. Okay, I want to make it clear what we're watching right here. This is the cutest version of the scariest thing we're ever going to see in our lives. These are robot monsters that are absolutely going to come kill us someday, but they are so adorable. David Llama, don't know why, but it creeps you out. Okay, my theory is, and you're either creeped out by the mere fact that, again, these are definitely killer robots that one day will come for us, or far more likely, far more likely, I think you're creeped out by how they move. Because they stutter with their movements. Like a lot of the movements that they make are extremely, well, robotic, which I'm sure is very obvious, but yeah, they feel the fact that their arm will like move to a spot and then just stays there while it thinks, and then it'll start moving around again and doing something. That, I think, is what makes them creepy. Maybe it's something else, but that to me is the big trigger. It signifies to me that they don't quite have, they're tested and working, but maybe they don't work well enough yet. Yeah, that's kind of what I get out of them. It needs more friendly design. Yeah, I would agree with that. Though I mean, I don't know. The yellow dog that does marching is kind of cute. Andy Rubin was in charge of Boston Dynamics, therefore Sex Dungeon. Yeah, This video is getting demonetized anyway, so not that it was getting monetized, so whatever. But yeah, Andy Rubin doing a sex dungeon with Boston Dynamics robots. The thing is, watch all of the Boston Dynamics videos. They all look like at one point or another somebody decided, hey, let's just do something weird and fun with these robots. They're goofy, they're weird, they're fun. I mean, creepy, yes, but they also just happen to have like they're always doing silly stuff. Like they had them jumping rope. They had the robot that you walk up to and try to kick over. All the different things that they've demonstrated. They're fun. They're goofy. That's why they're scary. It's the Uncanny Valley kind of situation. They're creepy almost because they are just wrong enough. Let's be honest, if these things were moving around just smoothly like humans do, obviously not with like human faces or anything, but if they just had like regular movement, they would be way less creepy. It would also help if they didn't design an arm attachment that looks like a snake's head. I mean, seriously. Design an arm attachment that doesn't look like a snake's head. Also, to some extent, this is looking... I mean, this already was the robot, or similar to the robot that they had in the Black Mirror episode. But they're making it seem even more like the Black Mirror robot. And that's not good. That's definitely not good. Let's see. Did they list how much the arm is going to cost? Because the dog went on sale for $74,500. And seriously, why not just round up to $75,000? Someone out there's like, oh my god, it's a $500 sale, totally worth it. Now I'll buy something for $74,500. That's the right number for this. $75,000 would have been too much. But no. Now for the extra 50, they give you a stand. Looking for a price. Come on. Boo, no price. Oh man, can you imagine if Google had kept this? There is no chance the world would have been okay with Google holding on to this company. This would have scared the living crap out of people. Republicans would have looked at this and just absolutely lost their minds. Oh, jeez. Oh. The necessary stretch. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Something about today is just kicking me hard. I don't think it's lack of sleep. I think it's just, I don't know, maybe a weather thing. Who knows? Anyway, let's see. What else is... Do we have anything else? Oh, in case anyone stumbles across this one, I'll just mention this one. It's a small thing. Everyone's losing their mind over apparently, and this has a Greta Thunberg exposed hashtag. Feel free to ignore this. It's bullshit. She responded to somebody and sent them a link. Cough, cough, cough. Time for your nap. Nice. Don't make me come after you, David. Anyway, yeah, if you go looking into this, all she did was share a link to a document that's advising people, hey, if you want to get involved in a protest, here's how you do a Twitter storm, and here's how you do here's how you do pictures, and how you should organize and when you should organize. Like, it's not that big of a deal, but they're trying to make it out like this is this is a Watergate scandal of like, oh my God, look how prepared they are, how organized this whole thing is. Well, yeah, they gave people a 4-page thing saying, here's, you should hold up some signs, you should go to such and such place to be involved in this thing. I don't think people understand what makes a scandal these days. If we're going to talk about scandal, let's talk about like Oregon state senators who decided to threaten to shoot police because they were refusing to even show up to do a vote after months and months of legislation. And then they made a big stunt out of, quote, escaping to Idaho. Literally no one was trying to stop them from escaping to Idaho. No one was like arresting them. No one was forcing them into anything. But hey, stupid BS is stupid BS. Shocking, I know. Let's see. Amazon's next headquarters is a glass poop emoji covered in trees. Okay, Verge. I'm with you. I support this. That's a good title. I will say though, that looks cool as hell. I would want to build that building. Even if it is definitely just an emoji. It is purified poop emoji. Yeah, it looks good. And that's the thing. Like, this is a building people would want to actually be in. I mean, maybe internally it might have some problems, but it is a cool looking building. It's a building that's actually going to look good. Presumably, like in the picture they're showing, this is actually going to be a good looking building. It may have some minor reflective complications, but honestly not any worse than any of the other buildings. In fact, probably less so. But it could introduce a few issues. But yeah, this looks like a great building. I would want to work in this building. Totally down for that. I'd want to drive by this building every day. Like, this is a neat looking building. Hell, I would love to see something like that done in Vegas. And that's going to be in Arlington, Virginia. Yeah, that's a shame. Would have been nice if that was somewhere closer. The location is odd. Actually, you know what it looks like to me? A Christmas tree. I totally get Christmas tree out of this. In the winter, they need to make it a giant snow sled slope. Austin, that is genius. Put up guardrails. Fill it with fake snow. You could have the Amazon bobsled team. I want this. I need this. I am going to... You have now convinced me. I'm going to become mega rich. I'm going to buy this building. And I'm going to turn it into a winter park. In the winter. That is now happening. I mean, in the summer, you could turn it into a water slide. There's no reason you couldn't turn this into a water slide. So yeah, I love that idea. I want that idea so much. Just think of being at the top of that. That's what? How many stories tall is that other building that's probably about the same height? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 that I can count. There's also whatever the hell's on top of that. So call it minimum 14. Well, we'll say 14 stories worth of water slide. If they don't do this, I will sue. I actually won't sue them, but I would want to, because missed opportunity deserves criticism. Does Oregon have any cool buildings? I don't think so. I mean, we have I don't know if you'd want to count this. Oregon Scientology building. I think that's. I would have sworn Oregon had. No, maybe it wasn't the Scientology building. Who was it? There was something. There was some religion in Oregon that has a crazy building in Portland. Oregon crazy building. Let's. Whoa. All right, that's pretty neat. I mean, it's just a painting on the side of a building, but still, that's slick. I dig it. I'd go there. Let's see. I think it would have shown up by now. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong city. I don't think I am, though. Nevertheless, we don't have a lot of really special buildings here. Not in the sense of like really cool, unusual buildings. We get a lot of designs like this. We're really into sort of the like take a small risk kind of buildings, but nothing terribly elaborate, nothing super special and weird. We also get well, that's not the greatest example, but we do get a few buildings with like oddball accoutrement. Yeah. I mean, if you're watching this stream of images, you're seeing it. There's nothing super special. Oh, but okay. No, that's not the place. Man, that looks exactly like a there's a bar restaurant kind of place in Portland that actually has a roof or a ceiling that looks exactly like that. But that's obviously not the place. But yeah, anyway, nothing too special. Yeah, Oregon is one of those states. It has interesting things in it, but not many, and not overly interesting. We don't have like a Space Needle. We don't have any really crazy special buildings that are landmarks. All of our stuff is just sort of mostly average. We do have nicely designed things. Usually really old, nicely designed things, but we do have nicely designed things. New Google building with a rare Starchitect design. Damn it, my phone woke up to that too. Seriously. Stop. What is a Starchitect? Is that like a celebrity architect? Wait, when was this? Okay, so this is 6 months ago. About. Okay, so going up in Austin. Luckily, when Austin got around to the blah, blah, blah. The power plant was repurposed for mixed use in a way that made it contemporary, but kept highly visible elements of its original art, modern design. The new central library on part of the former water treatment plant grounds takes a completely different approach with an exciting, dynamic new build. An important building and a model of sustainability. Okay. So Google leased the building. Oops. Damn it. Accidental click. For architecture fans, it was worth the wait. The currently unnamed building is designed by internationally renowned firm Pelly Clark Pelly, or Paley Clark Paley, whatever. Fresh off the completion of a building for another tech giant, Salesforce Tower, which is now the tallest building in San Francisco. Other notable designs by the Connecticut-based firm include New York's World Financial Center complex, now called Brookfield Place, and the landmark Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Joining Pele Clark Pele on the project are local firms STG Design and Campbell Landscape Architecture. Yeah, not bad. I don't know, it doesn't look super neat to me. I obviously, like, it's nice to have a different looking type of building in the skyline. But I don't know, there's just something about it. It just doesn't ring to me like, oh my god, it's the coolest looking building. Though given that location, that looks super cool. Let's see. So I do like these observation decks though. Those look pretty cool. Yeah, you can't see my cursor with this setup, but yeah, that observation deck and then the little mini deck on the level below. That's a nice touch. I dig that. Actually, that looks like maybe 2 floors. Oh, and then there's one below that. Actually, I think that's observation decks all the way down. That's cool. I want that. Apple's is better. The spaceship. Yeah, Apple's design is pretty neat. Though I'm not sure that I would necessarily I don't expect it's space efficient, which is, I think, probably the real issue. considering the location of Apple's building, I kind of get it, but Google's building, at least this particular building, is in a location where you wouldn't really be able to build something like Apple's design. It's just too space inefficient. It's only a few floors up, and the round design, I'm sure, is not terribly helpful to try to work within. Let's see. Oh, yeah, 2019, not 6 months ago. I'm still reading everything as 2020. Let's see. Anyway, was there anything else in here? I don't think there's much else in the good politics realm to dig into today. There's so much stuff happening. For those who don't know, the Senate did use budget reconciliation to push forward the hey, see, Saldana, I've passed my 15-minute warning. That was 30 minutes ago. But budget reconciliation to push forward the $1.9 trillion bill. So, good news. I didn't check how much still has to happen before that goes through, though. I don't know if there's another step or if that means that we can just assume checks are going to be going out in short order. We'll see. Maybe somebody else actually has this information. I just haven't looked at it yet. Actually, I guess we could really quick. We'll dig into that right now. Budget reconciliation and stimulus. Here's what the budget reconciliation is and why it matters for Biden's stimulus. Thank you, CNN. We're CNN. Okay, and stop with the auto-playing video, you douche knuckles. Trump's impeachment lawyer. Bye, Felicia. Did he fire another one, or is this still just the first group you're making fun of? Because I only know of the first group. Anyway, as Biden pursues a bipartisan COVID-19 relief deal, Senate Democrats are laying the groundwork for passing relief without any Republican votes using a procedural shortcut known as budget reconciliation. Reconciliation could allow Democrats to fast-track key aspects of Biden's agenda from COVID-19 relief to infrastructure, but the process comes with a strict set of rules attached. Here's what you need to know. The process was set up as part of the 1974 Congressional Budget Act to make it faster and easier to pass legislation related to spending, taxes, and debt. Because debate on the bills is limited to 20 hours and can be passed on a simple majority vote. His new lawyer dropped him. How do you lose this many lawyers? I bet I know why. They all realize that he didn't pay Rudy Giuliani. Once you have a high-profile example of not paying someone who technically did their job, even if it was incompetently, it's a bad look. Budget reconciliation allows lawmakers to bypass the 60-vote threshold typically required for breaking filibusters and moving legislation forward. Democrats currently control blah, blah, blah. What can be passed using budget reconciliation? Okay, I wanted to know if there was any stages between passing. So this article is not giving us the information we wanted. Here we go. The Denver Channel, Denver 7. Senate Dems appear to be on track to pass the $1.9 trillion stimulus package without Republican support, as all 50 senators in the Democratic caucus approved a motion to proceed resolution on Tuesday. The resolution allows Democrats to pass the stimulus bill through a process known as budget reconciliation. The vote was the first of several steps needed in order for the bill, which includes $1,400 stimulus checks for many Americans, to be signed by Joe Biden. Yeah, but it's not like he's going to sign them individually. Just saying. The resolution passed by a 50 to 49 margin with one GOP member not present. Budget reconciliation was previously used by Republicans who had the majority as a way to maneuver around the filibuster, which ordinarily would require 60 senators to call for a vote. Now Democrats only need a simply majority to pass a stimulus bill. Editors. Republicans attempted to use the budget reconciliation process in 2017 to pass a skinny repeal of the Affordable Care Act. The vote, however, failed by single vote after Senator John McCain cast the deciding vote. Republicans also used budget reconciliation to pass Tax Cuts and Job Acts of 2017, otherwise known as the Trump tax cuts. Without any GOP support, Democrats would be forced to use budget reconciliation, which cannot be filibustered. Senate rules say through reconciliation, certain committees, blah, blah, blah. Okay, come on. There were some questions leading into Tuesday's vote on how several moderate Democrats, namely, blah, blah, blah. I don't even care about this. Vote comes after Biden met with Tim's Republican senators. Those senators pushed for the $900 million bill. Okay. All right. Alright, this doesn't tell me anything. Thanks. It doesn't tell what comes next, or if there is a next. Thank you for not telling me the one piece of information I was looking for. Oh boy. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I can feel my throat hitting its definite edge. I'm going to let it relax. This will give David Lama a good opportunity to go back and catch the rant, which is not friendly to certain types of blogs, for sure. Not friendly to certain types of blogs, but yeah, I may get some sleep, but I doubt it. I don't really feel sleepy tired. I feel more just energy drained tired. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, I guess cutting it early today at only 4 hours, or just short of 4 hours. I guess more like 4.5, considering all things considered. But as usual, thanks for coming by. Thanks for being part of the conversation, joining me, hanging out, giving me something to talk about, and babbling incoherently, as it were. As usual, if you'd like to support the channel, by all means, hit the links down in the description below. There's Patreon if you'd like to throw something consistently my direction, or just tips through Streamlabs. Both are welcome, but never required. Let's see. As previously discussed, not that most of you caught this in the past, this mention, but one of the things I plan on doing, hopefully in the next day or two, I will hopefully run a photo editing stream, which is going to literally be, as it sounds, photo edits. I kind of showed off a little bit of that during the last game stream. Actually, about the last hour of that game stream. Kind of. yeah, it'll be me going through like some photos, prepping them for posting a review. But yeah, if I was to guess, I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow because I've got a lot of stuff I need to get done tomorrow. But Friday night is plausible. No promises yet, no guarantees. But yeah, there may be a not very well planned, not very specifically timed or planned. There may be a stream just kind of popping up at the last minute with photo edits. So yeah, if anybody is interested in seeing that, keep an eye out, and it will very, very likely be happening soon. But with that, again, thanks for coming by. Hope everyone had a good time, and I will see you in the next one. Good night, everybody.